we're entering into a two-part sermon. The first half is delivered by myself this morning, and the second part is going to be delivered by Keith next week. So the whole week you're going to be on tender hooks of what is going to happen next. And the title... Yes, please. Oh, yeah. Oh, I've advertised who the preacher is. Oh, dear. They're all on holiday. Last minute booking. All came in. The title of my sermon is The Importance of Being Part of a Home Group, bracket, being discipled and discipling. Okay? And then next week we're going to look a little bit more into the importance of studying the Bible for yourselves with others, brackets, outside of just listening to a sermon. I think the brackets are important in all of that. So today, we're looking at home groups, and what we've really felt where as a church that we haven't got it right, and I think it's good as a church that we really kind of look at ourselves and saying, what are we doing well? Yeah, let's celebrate. But what areas do we need to work on as a church? And as a leadership team, we really felt that as a church, we're lacking in seeing the importance of home groups and encouraging FNLCers. That's a kind of our new kind of Go Giants, kind of or the Redskins or whatever it is, or whatever the. What are the? Oh, it's the Commanders. Is it? What team is that? Oh, Washington. Oh, right, Washington Commanders. Never heard of them. Oh, okay. Oh, but they had to change their name. Oh, that's right. I remember now. No, yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. So, are the FNLCers to be part of home group? So, this is a kind of a really deliberate sermon. I'm not going to kind of pretend and weave my way around and you kind of be convinced, oh, I need to be part of a home group. Okay, I'm going to be honest right from the very start to encourage us to be part of a home group because we see it as a scriptural thing to do, as instructed by the church, the early church, and I believe by God as well, encouraging us in that. So really we need to understand why we see it as important. Now, I've got a little PowerPoint this morning for us all to look at, which I'm going to go through. And my first kind of question I ask myself is, what is the difference in being a Christian and being a disciple? Because I think there's a massive, massive difference. And the Office of National Statistics, I will turn around to read this myself. The Office of National Statistics has published back in November all the findings from the census of 2021, the recent census. And within it, there was this question. It hit the headlines of the news that England and Wales, because Scotland is different, England and Wales for the first time has under 50% now of people are classing themselves as Christians. Big headline news. But, and I just find this fact, I love statistics, and I'm going to try and do this bit quickly, because otherwise it will take the whole sermon to go through, in what do they mean and what do people mean when they tick the box to say, I am a Christian? What does that actually entail? So the census introduced a voluntary question on religion in 2001. In the census data, it says religion refers to a person's religious affiliation. So already there's a word affiliation rather than anything overly strong. This is the religion in which they connect or identify rather than their beliefs or active religious practice. Okay? So when you say you're a Christian, it doesn't actually have anything to do with what you believe or what you practice. It's just literally, what is your religious affiliation? And as the question is voluntary, be cautious when comparing figures, etc., etc. So already, when we look at, 46% of this country is Christian, that's what we're looking at and referring to is, it's almost, where is their allegiance? Now, I wear a Gloucester Rugby hat, okay? It doesn't mean I support Gloucester Rugby. The last time I saw Gloucester Rugby play was about 6 or 7 years ago. The last time I saw the score line of Gloucester Rugby was probably, if not a year or so ago. And yet I wear a Gloucester Rugby hat. So therefore, people see me and they kind of, Gloucester Rugby. Didn't they do well on the weekend? Yes, I think. Possibly. Not a clue. It's an affiliation. Because I live in Gloucestershire, I therefore support Gloucester Rugby team. That's the way it goes. So next slide, please. We'll try and get through these quickly. Okay, thank you very much. So, in looking at the Forest of Dean, there are, from the census, it's gone up 6.1% from 2011 to 2021. We've gone from 82,000 people living in the Forest of Dean district up to 87,000 people. And you can see that the Forest of Dean district goes all the way up to Dimmock, Bromsborough, and all the way down to Hartbury, and all the way down to Tuts Hill. It's a long, thin area. 87,000 people in there. And if we just click on another slide, so let's just get an idea. And area-wise, okay, basically, the whole country of England and Wales, if you divide it up into football pitches and got everybody to stand in a football pitch, it averages out at 3 people per football pitch. Obviously, in cities it's greater, and in the countryside, so the least amount of area or people per area is the Lake District, which is a surprise, and they have 3 football pitches for 1 person. In the Forest of Dean, we have a football pitch each, basically. Okay, so just to kind of get us the idea of the density of the population. Okay, we'll move on. So the next one I want to just have a look at, there is a point to this. It's not just a kind of statistics for the fun of it. There is a gospel point to all of this, honestly. All those that are glazing over, okay, that's fine. Okay, so the changes in the census from different ages, because I'm always told, the Forest of Dean, everybody, when they get to 18, they move away and they don't come back until they're 65 or 70 to retire. And I feel now I need to prove with statistics that isn't true. Okay? So nationally, and for those on the screen, I'll try my best to put these onto the screen later, onto YouTube, so you can see them. You can see 0 to 4s nationally, there is a 7% drop in 0 to 4s. Obviously, there's increases. You can see the orange is increases, the blue are decreases. And so that's England. If we look at the Forest of Dean, okay, we can see actually from 25 to 34, there is a massive growth in the numbers of people living in this area. Okay, it follows nationally the same. So if we click on the next slide, we'll be able to compare the two. Isn't it great comparing the two? You're enthralled, I can see. Mo's wishing she never came back from America now, stayed another week. Okay, so you can actually see, where we are in the Forest of Dean as compared to England, it's about the same. Number of people living in the areas percentage-wise, if that makes any sense at all. We'll keep moving on. Don't laugh, please. Come on, this is fun. Now, here we go. The Forest of Dean. This is great with statistics because they go really deep down. And I think there's a challenge through all of this. In the Forest of Dean district, it's here all the way up nearly to Ledbury, okay? of all those that tick the boxes, 41% of people, of the 87,000 people, ticked to say they have no religion. Okay? That to me is a sad statistic that people tick that box. The next slide. Okay? In a positive, 50.5% of people have ticked a box to say they are Christian. But what does it mean to be a Christian? It just means to be affiliated to this thing that we don't really know anything about. And that for me is a real concern. So of 87,000 people we're looking at, in theory, there are about 100 churches in the Forest of Dean. And if 50% of 87,000 people were Christians and go into churches, 47,500 people. So there will be about, yeah, isn't it? Go on. Where's the what, sorry? I think that's Birmingham. It's not Birmingham, is it? No, I don't know. It's too far. Worcestershire? I don't know, I'll be very honest. I didn't look at that bit. I just looked at the Forest of Dean. Everybody's going to be moving now up there. But there will be about... oh, you're right, it's 43, you're right. I was thinking 90. 43,000 people in the Forest of Dean, Christians going to church, okay, by our expectation of what a Christian is and what a Christian does. And that to me is really, really shocking, that there are people that think I am a Christian, but actually have maybe absolutely nothing to do with Jesus whatsoever. So I think that's the last slide. Oh no, there's one more slide. So all the others, the 46 and the 50%, all the others then, to make up the 100%, put themselves down as Buddhist, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, or any other religion as well. So just to kind of get the comparison of all that. There we go. Wonderful. A lovely PowerPoint there on statistics. So, all to prove to the point... Oh, stop it, no. You'll encourage me for next time. You don't want to do that. You wouldn't want to be death by PowerPoint. But the point is simple, is what is the difference between being a Christian and being a disciple? It was a long-winded way of going around it. But what I believe is that being a Christian in today's standards, and how do I mark this up, is inactive. I can call myself a Christian and I can be inactive. I wrote down, before I did the statistics thing, it's a belief system, if you like. Well, according to the Office of National Statistics, it's not even a belief system. It's just something you affiliate to. But being a disciple is a lifestyle choice. And I've got a question that I ask myself and I ask you. Which are you? Are you a Christian, as opposed to the Office of National Statistics idea of what a Christian is, or are you a disciple? And unfortunately, I have to ask that question, is if you are a disciple, what does that mean to your lifestyle? Now, I really experienced home groups properly for the first time when I left home at 18 years old and moved down to North Devon to a little place, a little town called Barnstaple, where I farmed on a hill farm just outside of Barnstaple. And I went into Barnstaple to a local church called Grosvenor Street Church. And one of the first things that, as I got introduced to people, was I got invited along to it was a kind of, I guess it was an 18 to 30s-ish Bible study group, home group, house group, whatever we want to call it. And I went along, a very nervous 18-year-old, to this person's flat where we Bible studied, we chatted, we drank tea or coffee and had a biscuit or two and prayed together. And week on week, I went to this home group and listened to the preaching on Sunday, and something happened. What was going on with what I was learning, with what I was hearing? My lifestyle, my idea of who I was as a Christian changed. It led me to an understanding of my faith fully. I realized that yes, I am a Christian, but actually I was an inactive Christian because it didn't really affect me personally in what I did. Now, what actually happened through that experience in Barnstaple, it also led me then, when I came back home, I got then baptized. I thought, actually, yes, I really need to nail my colours to the mast, as we say. I need to be baptized. I need to put my proper allegiance to Jesus. I want to publicly say that I am a Christian. And what that then happened after that is then I entered into what I call full-time ministry. Now, when I say full-time ministry, I don't mean that I became a youth worker full-time or got paid at all. I still carried on working on the farm. I still carried on my job as a farm hand. But actually what it did was it gave me an understanding that I needed to be a disciple of Jesus 24/7. Jesus asked me that it all clicked together to do one simple job. It's found in Matthew 28, verses 19 and 20. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. In and through my paid employment, Jesus' instructions was to be lived out. And that was a really, really strong challenge to me. Of actually, Jesus has asked me to go and make disciples of all nations. Where I am now, farming, milking cows, looking after sheep, in a tractor, mowing a field, whatever it is, that I am to be a Christian in everything that I do. Last time I preached, we looked at the verse for the year, 1 Thessalonians 1, chapter 2. And in that sermon, I mentioned some other verses as well. And it was Acts chapter 2, verses 42 to 47. Pete read them earlier. Not planned, unless he'd been looking over my shoulder for my notes. No, he wasn't. It says this: they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everybody was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. So my life was totally changed by going to a home group. I had been brought up in the church. I knew the church. I knew what I thought most things about the Bible. If you asked me a question, I could answer it. All those kind of Malahala Shazbaz and all those other people in the Bible, I knew, I could say their name. I thought that I made it as a Christian because I thought it was all about my salvation and me going to heaven. And if you like, the earth, now, this life, was just a waiting room for what was to come. But in realizing that actually it's so much more. So for me, there is a real passion that home groups really help. I did a little bit of research. I thought, well, you can't just have my opinion on home groups. So I did some research into the benefits of being part of a home group. And this is what I found. A few different sites around on the internet. And I'm just going to read them through. They happen to refer to them as small groups, home groups, house groups, Bible studies, whatever you want to call them. So it says this: small groups provide an ideal way to care for the needs of people within the church. And I think it's fair to say that actually when we get into a smaller number, we're only we're not a ginormously massive mega church. We know that. Somebody said, for the benefit of the camera, somebody said yet. But are we prepared to be a mega church? And actually, if we are, how can we look after the needs of the people if there are 100, 200, 300 people, if we're not getting ourselves into small groups and really looking after each other and helping each other, taking care of the needs of the people? We see that in the early church. There was a mistake. They weren't caring for some widows because they got too big. And so they knew that they had to do something about it. Small groups provide a way for Christians to live out their faith instead of merely hearing more preaching and teaching. Not saying that preaching and teaching isn't good, but actually a small group provides a channel in which to help you exercise what you are learning on Sundays. Small groups participate in focused prayer for one another. The whole point of the verse of the year is to encourage us to pray for each other. And actually in a small group where you can be open, where you can be honest with your friends, actually we can really pray for each other. We can't from the front pray for so-and-so's got this operation or that operation, because some of those things are extremely personal. The what's actually happening in people's lives, or this is a problem at work, or this is an issue I'm having at home. But yet in a home group, we can really pray for one another. I'm just going to read just a few more out, and we'll if I say move on to the next part. Small groups allow for mutual edification among believers. It can help us cement what we believe. I've read this particular verse and passage, and I'm understanding this about it. Is that right? Yeah, no, that's the way I see it. Oh, that's the way I see it. Oh, phew. I wasn't quite sure if that was actually, if I was reading it correctly. We can really edify and we can really build each other up. We can encourage better learning through small groups. We can provide a source of encouragement and accountability. That's not a popular thing. It's not a popular word maybe to be using. But we need to be accountable as Christians or disciples of Jesus. We need to be accountable to each other to make sure, am I on the right path or not? It's so easy. We all know this. It is so easy to waver off the path and think we're still on the right track. And actually, in a small group, accountability with friends, with close friends that we know. For somebody, for example, if it was Pete, to come alongside me and say, Jonathan, I really don't think that is what you should be doing. Is that what you should be saying? If it was just somebody out there saying, oh, Jonathan, I think that's terrible what you're doing, I would ignore them. But because, for example, Peter said it, somebody maybe in my small home group, actually, that accountability has a lot of weight and a lot of power to it. So there's a lot more that I could say that I've read about home groups that is some really, really good stuff. I think I'm going to leave quite a bit of it. I just want to read one quote from one other website about this person called Juliet in London. She's recently married and is going along to a church and has started to attend a home group. And this is what she has said about it. My home group inspires me to pray more, to be more bold in my faith, and to open up to others about the joys and the struggles of life. It also helps me to think about or think through faith questions and aspects of culture, as it feels like a safe place to think out loud. And that, for me, that little quote there from Juliet, whoever she might be, I think really helped me to sum up that's the need that we need to have to be part of a home group. That actually, we are living in the world that is changing so much. So much is going on around the LGBTQ plus community, about gender issues. Where are we as Christians discussing that? Of what that means? How do we interact when that comes across our path? And if we're not in a safe place where we can discuss it and have views and opinions, and I don't know if this is right or not, but I'm thinking this way. And others are there saying, well, actually, let's look at Scripture. And Scripture is saying this, this, and this. Ah, right, thank you. It's in that home group that we can really be built up, where culture is changing so much that actually we do need to have safe places to think out loud. So before I started and went to a home group, I considered myself to be a Bible-believing Christian, a born-again Christian who knew the Bible. I won sword drills in church. You're of an age if you know what a sword drill is. If you don't, then ask me afterwards about a sword drill. I gained points in Bible Club for answering questions correctly. I delivered quizzes on the Bible at Youth Club. I'd even been a small group leader in holiday clubs. I knew that I was going to heaven when I died. Jesus was my Lord and Saviour. I even went up the front as well to ask the preacher to pray for me for healing. I was a Christian, but I changed into being a disciple of Jesus. My relationship with the persons of the Trinity grew. And I think for me, that is really important. And what it is for me to be a Christian, for me to be a disciple, is my relationship with the persons of the Trinity grew. The realization that being a Christian wasn't focused on me getting to heaven, it was living now with God. And I had people around me to help me to do that. And I was able to help others. I've mentioned about it was Stephen and his group of friends who looked after the widows' needs that arose. There's also people like Lydia, Priscilla, Aquila, Timothy, Luke, other examples of Christians in the early church in the Bible that I could have focused on to say, look at their examples of what they did and how they met together, how they knew that they needed to be part of not just church, but part of a small group. We don't have time to look at all of those. Maybe that's a topic for a home group session at some point. That was a little joke. It's fine. Thank you. Too kind. Ultimately, it's about your own personal conviction. All I can do is actually encourage you and tell you the benefits that I have had from being part of a home group. If you're on board with this, that's great. That is brilliant. If you're not sure, I would encourage you to consider it. And of course, I can't not mention this. If you're against the idea of being part of a home group and you don't want to join, ask yourself the question, why? Why do I not want to be part of a home group? As I said at the beginning, I've titled this sermon, The Importance of Being Part of a Home Group. And the brackets for me were really important. Being discipled and discipling. Being discipled is a desire to draw closer to God and to learn more of the riches of his love. And there's the joy of discipling others. What's not to love about that? Next time, we're going to look at the importance of studying the Bible for yourself with others. And without pinching anything from Keith at all, studying and reading the Bible are two very different things. It's been a slightly different style of sermon, and I've deliberately made it that way in the fact, as I said, from my own personal experience, to have been part of a home group. I think as a church, as a leadership team, we've recognized that we failed in doing that, and we need to be honest about it's an area we need to improve on, and actually an area that we then felt, actually, we can't just launch into home groups. Let's have some teaching. Let's have some sermons, talks about the importance of that. So I hope it's something really for you all to chew over, for me to chew over, to be part of how that is going to look, to be part of home groups.